It's great.
It's
I
true,
mean,
actually.
this show kind of brings it all together. It's like every genre in one, which for me is so much fun. I mean, I think anytime as an actor you get to be funny and heartfelt and action oriented, and there's so many different things in one, which is kind of what I'm always looking for. So you can kind of bring all your tools from the toolbox to play, and it makes it a lot more interesting. I don't know. I think I tend to seek out roles where the character is just really active and is constantly thinking and constantly trying to accomplish something and do something and become something. And I don't like to be passive and just sort of playing characters who are kind of sitting around or waiting for a phone call from their husband or whatever. So, which is a lot of roles for women, is a lot of like sitting on the phone while the guy goes off and does a lot of exciting stuff. So I think that's part of it, is I just am really drawn to roles where the characters are out there doing things and trying to figure something out and make something happen.
Yeah, I think it's the nice thing about conspiracy, in any kind of genre, or in books and in television and film, is that there, like Mary said, there's constantly something to strive for and something to overcome, which I think is, especially in a TV series, you need a story that can play out, and a story that can hopefully sustain over a season and multiple seasons. So I think that kind of, I always go back to the first season. I personally, I think that first season of Homeland, when you kind of didn't know whether or not he was a terrorist, it was some of the most exciting television I've ever seen. So I think the longer that you can play out these conspiratorial ideas, the better it is for, hopefully a long run of a show. I thought it was a little gross. Yeah, so I have to kind of I know I have to read the scripts, but I get a little grossed out sometimes and it's just action lines describing it. I'm like, that's so disgusting. But yeah, that was my initial reaction. But
I think I was just so blown away. I didn't expect this from the creators of The Good Wife, And so I think that's what was so exciting to me, was that I just was like, this is so different for them and so risky, because it's so strange and so out there. And I think it really made me excited to work for them, because they're coming up with something so odd and unique and unexpected. And I think I was like, oh yeah, these are the kind of people I want to work for.
Also, I think that CBS is taking the chance on something kind of off center for them. I mean, they've been so successful, and just to see that they're branching out, I think is really exciting to be a part of. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what's interesting about this, hopefully, is that it's not necessarily a political statement from a liberal media or liberal creative world against conservative or Republicans. That we are showing how extremism can polarize the country. I think if that's a political statement, I think that's the statement. But I don't know, playing a kind of a guy who's a Republican, and I tell my friends I'm kind of this asshole Republican chief of staff, and they roll their eyes. But at the same time, he's a bit of a Republican that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. He's very idealistic. Somebody asked me who his favorite president would be, and I said Teddy Roosevelt, because I think this guy just really believes, and it's a very old school idea, that in this country, if you work hard, if you do the right thing, if you keep your head down, your country should reward you for that. And I think that's the kind of the core of the Republican that I'm playing in the show. And it's something that we've gotten away from a little bit. And so I've actually, a couple people that I've talked to that have seen the pilot, they've said that, it's great to see that perspective of this. And I think that that's a really great thing that they're doing. And hopefully, it does play out, because, we just live in a crazy political climate that the stuff that you watch on television is just you can go crawl in a hole if you watch it for too long. So I think they're doing it a really good job of showing all sides of what this is.
Well, the show's definitely experimenting with that, and it plays out in different ways. And
what did Paul Abdul say though? 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, right?
I know. Well, I think the show, it like he was saying, it's really talking a lot about extremism and how almost people are being united for their hatred for each other. With that's ultimately how people are coming together. We both can agree that we have nothing in common and hate one another and cannot have any sort of discussion. And I think that our two characters sort of represent these two very idealistic, hopeful people who I think hopefully represent the best of their respective parties. People who just want to be able to live side by side and have reasonable conversations and have a debate and maybe actually get somewhere at the end of the day. I think that's kind of what we're hoping to show. It does, and I think, right, yeah. I mean, they are sort of united in that sense that I think Mercy Street, certainly we weren't trying to, sympathize with the other side or anything like that, but I think humanizing both sides was one of the goals of that show, and showing it from the perspective of the time, which is these were people who believed these things. They weren't just, sort of villains and heroes. And so I think that was kind of the discussion of that show. And I think, this one is obviously totally very different and a completely different story, but I think that same discussion sort of pervades in this as well. It's interesting. I used to really, I used to not want to play those kind of characters when I first started acting. I really wanted to be very character-y and always have like a role that was really different from myself, and that I could add a weird accent or a limp or something, and make it like real, real acting, I thought. So, probably a few years ago is when I kind of started playing more roles, like the protagonist roles, and trying to figure out how to make that interesting. And I think I kind of shifted my ideas on kind of what acting is to me, which is I bring a lot more of myself to it than I used to, and I realized that if I'm bringing all of myself to something, then unless I think very little of myself, which is I think I have nothing to bring to the table, then it's going to be interesting, because as just a human being, we all have so many different sides of our personality and things that, reactions that we're capable of having emotionally in any given moment. So I feel like it opens it up so much more, instead of thinking in this box of like, well, this character would only react in this way. I think, well, if it were me, I could react in any number of ways and anything could happen, and it makes it really kind of exciting for me in that way if I think of myself being in the situation that the character's in.
Well, again, I think that's what's kind of interesting about the show, is that as it goes, you kind of find the people that are living in this kind of, you can say the moderate realm in the middle, but it's also kind of like the people living in reality in the middle of all of this happening kind of start to look and say, hey, I might need to work with you a little bit on this, no matter what, what the party line is. But I think, again, that's a really interesting thing that, can go forward. And what Mary was saying too is that, hopefully these two people do represent the good sides of each of this coin. And if they can kind of find that in each other and work, that's a good thing. And I think that's something we need more of in the real world.
Yes to both questions.
Yeah, the song, but it's one of those things that we did hear it a little bit on set, right?
It's not, every time we hear it though, now we all get it in our heads so much that we're just singing it all the time.
And actually,
so you're like affected,
all of us,
twisted brain.
But what was nice though is we heard it so much, and then they just put out a new trailer with the song, and I was like, oh, this is so great with the song. So that was good too.
You're gonna torture us.
Yeah, exactly. And the ick factor, there's a bit of an ick factor. Actually, filming, I haven't had to really. Well, that's not true. But I haven't had to deal with the brains coming up. We've had to deal with some other nasty stuff, but we'll save that. But reading it is the thing that I just can't. I can't do it.
My first scene that we shot for the show, my first day, was in the ambulance. That scene. Oh, well, the very first scene. So I really was baptized by fire. It was first scene. I hadn't even met everybody yet. I was just like,
well,
hi,
that would have
nice
been
to
a
meet
good
you.
time to meet Aaron then.
Right, exactly.
Hey, what's up? Oh yeah, you have something in your face.
And I had no idea how much it was going to be. Because it wasn't. You never know with those things. It could just be a little trickle, a little something, and it was like Carrie. It was like.
I don't know.
Just fell into it.
Yeah, I think that was something we all worked on every take, every day, and we still do. We don't, because like now obviously we've seen the pilot, but for a couple months we were doing this like kind of in a vacuum. You don't know what it is, so I think we were working on.
We would just had a lot of trust in Robert and Michelle, and that if they felt like it was working, then we must be doing something right. And I feel like I had a sense from reading it of what they wanted, but ultimately really didn't know how it was all going to come together with all the characters and all the storylines and all the genres. But we just kind of knew it was going to work. I think we just kind of had.
And I think one thing that we did too is we've never been sending the material up. Like we've never been making it a camp thing. Yeah. And so I think that is something that was kind of that we all agreed upon. And we were all within this realm taking it as realistic as possible. Just that these circumstances are happening in the real world, you know. But we really just trusted them to tell us more or less, whatever. Yeah.
Well, the dialogue was so snappy, too.
Yes.
The dialogue's amazing. It really is so well written.
And they reference a lot on sets, you know, like old 1940s movies and a lot of that kind of, so you very quickly started to understand what they were, the throwback kind of feeling they were going for.
Yeah.
A little Rosalind Russell.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they've said The West Wing, but they also talk about His Girl Friday, and it's it's all these throwback things, so it's great.